Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. We have another great show for you today. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, as well as hitting the notification bell so you don't miss another video just like this. We are back with a new forecast for the 2028 presidential election with JD Vance versus Gavin Newsom. And this is the first forecast that I've done after the Charlie Kirk assassination, which has definitely changed up the electorate by a pretty decent amount. Looking at the safe Republican states, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas, all of Nebraska, except the 2nd Congressional District, Alaska, Oklahoma, Kansas, Oklahoma, Alaska, as well as the state of Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Iowa, South Carolina, and Florida are all in the safe column of over a 12-point margin for JD Vance. Looking at the state of Ohio, JD Vance is actually winning the state by 12.7%, and he's winning the state by basically 170,000 votes, or not 170,000 votes. It's way bigger than that, actually. It's like a pretty decent margin. It's almost a 700,000 vote margin in the state of Ohio. And this is producing a slightly bigger margin than the last election, where JD Vance, or Donald Trump, excuse me, actually won the state by 11.2%. So Vance is actually improving in his home state of Ohio, and he's able to deliver a pretty big performance in the battleground state, or not the battleground state, but in the state of Ohio. And this puts the state of Ohio in the safe Republican column at over 12 points for JD Vance. And those are all of the safe states on the electoral map, putting Vance at 218 safe electoral votes, with the Democrat safe states being no other than California, Oregon, Washington, as well as the state of Hawaii, including the states of Maryland, Delaware, D.C., Massachusetts, Vermont, New York, and Connecticut, as well as Maine's 1st Congressional District, granting Governor Newsom about 144 safe electoral college votes. And you can already see that this is a pretty skewed electoral map in favor of JD Vance. JD Vance barely needs any electoral votes to actually win the electoral college this time around. And it is definitely going to be a pretty easy election for JD Vance, given the dynamics this cycle. Looking at the likely Republican states, we actually have the following under this category. The Maine 2nd Congressional District is a likely margin of about 9.3 percentage points, which is, believe it or not, slightly more Republican than what it was back in 2024. Maine's 1st Congressional District ends up going down all the way to a 17-point margin for Gavin Newsom, which is a 4-point shift away from Kamala Harris's performance in the 1st district, and that ultimately ends up shrinking the margin in Maine for Gavin Newsom, believe it or not. So that's actually a pretty interesting observation there in terms of the electoral prospects there. Arizona and Nevada are now in the likely Republican column on the map. We can see here that both of these states have been filled in likely red. And when you look at the actual results here, we see that Arizona and Nevada are almost a 10.8 percentage point win and a 6.2 percentage point win. So the margins basically double in these states, believe it or not. And looking at the county map, it's very simple. Maricopa County ends up becoming a 10-point win for Vance, where Vance gets 1.1 million votes in Maricopa County to Gavin Newsom's 897,000 votes in the county, and he's beating Newsom there by a pretty big margin. And even in Nevada, you can see that Clark County ends up flipping to Vance by about just 0.6 percentage points, and the entire state is ruby red, including Carson City shifting to the right by a couple of points, and Washoe County also being in that Republican column. Last cycle, both Washoe and Nevada were actually in this blue column, and Carson City actually ends up getting closer this time, believe it or not. So Carson City actually goes better for Newsom for whatever reason. But Washoe County and Clark County both end up moving to the right by equal amounts, and we end up getting a pretty red Nevada in this election cycle due to Newsom's unpopularity. Looking at the likely Democrat states, you have the states of Illinois, Virginia, and Rhode Island falling in this likely Democratic column. Illinois is only about a 6.9 percentage point win, only 380,000 vote margin of victory for Newsom. And when you look at the county map in the state of Illinois, the biggest thing is Cook County ends up getting more and more competitive at the national level. It is shifting 4 points to the right, and you actually see a lot of exurbs around around Cook County actually flipping Republican. For example, Will County went to Harris by about 1.6%. But when you actually look at the forecast here, Will County ends up flipping to Vance by 8 points. He wins Kane County by 0.2%. He wins DeKalb County by 3.5%. So he's doing pretty well in a lot of these counties. And he ends up pretty much making huge rural gains in Illinois. So, and the suburban areas just kind of follow suit. So it is really interesting to actually see this dynamic take shape. And then looking forward to the next states here, Virginia actually ends up shifting to the left from the last election. Loudoun County, believe it or not, ends up shifting a little bit more Democrat. I believe it does. We're actually going to check it right now. Actually, Loudoun County gets closer, but for whatever reason, a lot of these like suburban counties end up getting more Democrat in the state. So that's kind of interesting. Vance actually flips Virginia Beach into his column, but there's a lot of suburban and, you know, kind of like these city areas that end up shifting left. So Vance actually makes some minor losses in Virginia, and he loses the state by about 300,000 votes there. And in Rhode Island, you can see that it narrows up from 2024, but it is quite not in the competitive area yet. Maryland ends up getting more blue. Delaware gets a little bit closer. Connecticut gets closer. Massachusetts gets closer, even Vermont. But Maryland and Virginia actually end up shifting left. And this is mainly because of the black vote actually shifting a little bit to the left in this cycle. Vance, in my opinion, I don't think would do as well with black voters as Donald Trump would. And so because of that, you are seeing a little bit of different dynamics on the map here. Looking at the lean Republican states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina all fall in this category, putting Vance at 296 on the map here, which is a very, very fascinating thing. He wins North Carolina by 2.7%, which is a closer victory than Trump's back in the last election, where you see here Vance is winning it by 2.7%. Trump won the state by 3.2%. But this kind of Eastern Sunbelt area is actually shifting a little bit to the left, which is slightly concerning for Republicans. But given Charlie Kirk's assassination, given Vance's approval rating, given the state of the economy, given the fact that Gavin Newsom is a very unpopular general election candidate, it is going to put Vance in a way stronger position. And in the Rust Belt, Vance absolutely kills it. We actually have to add New Hampshire into this column of the lean category. I almost forgot to actually put that there. But yes, even New Hampshire falls in the lean category there, which is absolutely fascinating. Even, I believe, we actually go ahead and look at this too. No, that doesn't go in the lean column. But pretty much looking at the electoral map so far, Vance already cracks 300 electoral votes. Wisconsin, almost a likely margin there. It is almost a 6-point win, literally just 5.99%. Michigan at a 4-point win, and Pennsylvania at a 5.8 percentage point win. So the Rust Belt, Vance's coalition is significantly more Republican, with even Illinois being like an 18-point win for Vance. So like this area is just much more Republican. And if we look at the county map, like, I mean, Dane, Milwaukee's way closer. Dane is a little bit closer, but like Portage County flips by a lot. Ozaukee and all of these areas, all these suburban areas completely trend to the right. Eau Claire and La Crosse County are really close. Vernon is a 12-point win. Sauk County is a 7-point margin. The northern Wisconsin counties are much closer on the map. And like even Michigan, like even Luna County ends up flipping by just 1.8%. Even Kent County ends up flipping Republican here, and Macomb is a 17-point win. And then in Pennsylvania, Bucks County is a 7-point margin for Vance. Philadelphia actually isn't as, believe it or not, Philadelphia actually ends up being a little bit more Democrat in this map. Like Newsom actually gains in the city area very narrowly here, but in the suburban areas, Vance is just killing it. And even in like a lot of the rural counties, Vance does a lot better. And in Center County, Vance is absolutely killing it because of the younger population. And then Erie County is like a 3.9 percentage point win. So it is an absolute trouncing in the Rust Belt for JD Vance against Newsom. And even like Bergen County flips, like a bunch of these counties end up flipping. Even in Rhode Island, like Kent County in Rhode Island ends up flipping by a 1.5 points. So like these are just fascinating shifts electorally for Vance. Like he's just absolutely killing it in this area of the country. And so that kind of puts him at 300 electoral votes with the lean likely and safe states. As for the lean Democrat states, you have Maine at large, New Jersey, Colorado, and New Mexico. So New Mexico doesn't necessarily budge too much. It actually only ends up shifting by about a couple points. It's a 2.6 percentage point margin for Newsom. Newsom wins it by about 25,000 votes. And Colorado ends up going all the way down to a 4-point win. Newsom underperforms with Hispanics once again compared to, even Kamala Harris. And white voters end up shifting a little bit to the right here. And a lot of technology jobs end up shifting in the Republican column here. So, this big shift in this area really ends up making these states way closer. Colorado has a lot of independents that Vance is doing better with in this forecast. And so that's another reason why this is such a closer margin. But this basically puts Newsom at just 211 electoral college votes here. In New Jersey is also a lot closer, but does not quite flip. It's only a 2.3 percentage point margin for Newsom, so it's a lot closer. Only about 100,000 vote victory for Newsom in the state. So not a really good performance there for Newsom whatsoever. And really just looking at like the county map here, like even like Guadalupe County and Socorro County end up flipping Republican here. Like it's a disaster for Newsom in that state. And then looking at the final tilt states, which are all going Republican, Georgia, Nebraska, 2nd Congressional District, and Minnesota all go tilt Republican on the forecast here by very narrow margins, with Minnesota flipping to JD Vance by 0.6% and just about 20,000 votes in the state. And Georgia holding for Vance from the last election by just 0.5%. You can see in Florida, believe it or not, Duval and the state of Georgia actually have this really cool relationship where when Duval moves left, Georgia almost certainly moves left. And our forecasting model actually kind of tracks with this. And we actually see that Duval ends up shifting back to the left. So actually Newsom ends up flipping this county from Trump. This is the only county in the state of Florida that ends up flipping back to Newsom, which is very fascinating. And he wins it by 0.6%. And the state of Georgia ends up moving back with it. And Fayette County ends up getting a little bit more competitive. And these blue counties start actually getting significantly more Democrat in Georgia. And so that black population there is really shifting the movement towards the Democratic Party. And Vance really just narrowly holds the state in this forecast. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.